And to talk more about the state of the southern border as the first week of the new Trump administration is coming to an end is Lieutenant Chris Olivarez, spokesperson for the Texas Department of Public Safety. Lieutenant, always appreciate you making the time. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me, Natasha.
I want to ask you about this brand new number coming down in just the last 10 minutes or so. ICE reporting 956 arrests today. That is more than 3 times the number of arrests we saw yesterday. What are your comments here?
You know, it is. I think we're actually seeing what this new administration has been talking about, in the course of the last couple of years now, is that they were going to take action on day one, and they did. And we're starting to see that expedited operation as far as looking and locating criminal illegal aliens that are in the country right now. And that's really what people need to understand, is that we're looking for criminals. And I say we're talking about law enforcement across the board, but most importantly, federal agencies such as HSI, Border Patrol, DEA. They're looking for the worst of the worst in these communities. And I can't see how anyone would even dispute that, how they would not want anyone or any law enforcement agency to remove those public safety threats from their community. So we're seeing that right now. But really what really stands out to me, though, is for one, 2 factors. One, we're seeing more of an expedited process in looking for these criminals. And 2, we're seeing transparency, which we didn't have in the last 4 years. And I think that's what really highlights the work that federal agencies are doing, also law enforcement across the country, when they're making these type of arrests, that the American public actually understand what type of people are in their communities and what they're wanted for, what type of crimes they committed. So that in itself, really, that transparency really highlights the work that's being done and really shows the importance behind it.
Yeah, and to your point, who does not want violent criminals out of their communities? And the numbers completely reflecting that. The vast majority of Americans absolutely support the removal of undocumented violent criminals. I want to get your take. Last hour on Prime, we had Major General William Enyard on our show, and he commented on the reported arrest quota that is going into place now. 75 arrests per ICE field office per day. Let's take a quick listen to his response to this quota.
Anytime you put a quota on a law enforcement officer, that's a bad idea. Law enforcement officers are supposed to use their discretion. And by forcing them to make arrests, you're simply asking for an abuse of their police powers. They're all good people and they work hard. I should say almost all of them are good people and they work hard. But, when you're put under that kind of pressure, you make mistakes.
What is your take on this?
Well, I do agree to some point that he made there, as far as when you do have a quota, you do force law enforcement to reach that quota, there is going to be mistakes made. I'm not aware of any quotas that are being set by federal law enforcement. I'm unaware of that. What I can tell you, at least from our end in Texas, our law enforcement, our state troopers, our criminal investigators, we don't have a quota. We want to prioritize public safety. We want to go out there and do the job and really focus on just traditional police work, and that is looking for criminals. And I'll give you a prime example. This past Friday, our special agents arrested 2 criminal illegal immigrants that were from Mexico, and they were wanted for sex crimes of children. These are the worst of the worst that we're trying to remove. So as far as quotas, I'm not aware of any quotas from any law enforcement agency. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to speak on that. But I can tell you from law enforcement in general, we don't have quotas. We want to prioritize the safety of our communities, and that's looking for criminals. But again, obviously, mistakes can be made when there is more pressure. But again, we need to focus on what's the most important thing right now, and that is trying to remove these criminal immigrants from these communities.
Yeah, and Homan has said absolutely criminals first. He has also said there is a certain number, a limited number of these criminals. Do you feel with a quota of perhaps 75 arrests per field office per day that non-criminals will start to get caught up in this?
Well, I think Tom Homan made it very clear is that's why you need cooperation from elected officials and from law enforcement across the country. And the most advantageous process would be is arresting criminal illegal immigrants that are in the jail right now, as opposed to being released. And now you have to go look for them in a community where it's much more dangerous for the officer, much more dangerous for the migrant themselves and for the community. And also, Tom Homan said it very, very clear as well, is that when you go look for these criminals in the communities, there may be other illegal immigrants that are associated with those criminals that are subject to removal as well because they're in the country illegally. So the best process is to avoid all of that conflict is to work with law enforcement, especially federal law enforcement, and actually have these individuals that are in the jails right now before they get released and have them removed. That would be the much safer process, the much more common sense process to actually remove some of these criminals from the country.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.